Imagine this: a single bullet in Sarajevo lit the fuse for the deadliest war the world had ever seen. One shot echoing through Europe turned suspicion into fury, friends into enemies, and peace into a ghost. What followed wasn't just a murder investigation. It was the slow collapse of an entire continent, where every decision, every delay, and every whispered promise carried Europe closer to the abyss. Austria-Hungary now stood at a dangerous crossroads. Their heir to the throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, had been assassinated. The empire's leaders had to decide: crush Serbia quickly, or hesitate and look weak. But declaring war wasn't so simple. Hungary's Prime Minister István Tisza demanded absolute proof of Serbia's guilt before unleashing soldiers. Even Austria's own generals admitted they would need weeks just to mobilize. And overshadowing everything was a single question that could decide Europe's fate: would Germany stand with Austria if Russia intervened? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss our deep dives into the moments that changed history. In Vienna, the halls of power were tense. Pro-war voices pressed for action. Foreign Minister Berchtold wanted a strike that would shatter Serbia's influence in the Balkans once and for all. Chief of Staff Konrad von Heitzendorf argued war was inevitable, and that every day of delay weakened Austria's position, but Tisza refused to budge. Without diplomacy, he warned, Austria risked fighting not just Serbia, but Russia, Romania, and perhaps even France. He insisted that the empire issue demands first, something Serbia would almost certainly reject. Meanwhile, Austria's leaders knew they couldn't move without Berlin's blessing. And so Count Alexander Hoyos, a hawkish diplomat trusted by the emperor, was dispatched to Germany. His mission was clear: secure the Kaiser's support for whatever came next. Hoyos arrived in Berlin at the perfect moment. Kaiser Wilhelm II was still seething over the Archduke's murder. Franz Ferdinand had been more than a fellow monarch. He was a friend. Wilhelm saw the assassination not just as an attack on Austria, but as a warning to every crowned head of Europe. If monarchy itself could be gunned down in the street, what future was left for kings? Austria's timing was flawless. Strike while the Kaiser was still angry, and Germany might offer unconditional support. At the same time, the investigation in Sarajevo gave Vienna fresh ammunition. Gavrilo Princip, the young assassin, at first denied being part of a larger conspiracy. But under relentless interrogation, his comrades began to crack. One after another, they revealed connections, names, and hints of Serbian involvement. By July 2nd, Princip himself admitted enough to suggest a wider network. For Vienna, this was gold. Now they could argue Serbia wasn't just turning a blind eye to terrorism, it was breeding it. On July 5th, just a week after the Archduke's death, the crucial note was placed into Kaiser Wilhelm's hands. At first, the Kaiser wavered. He insisted on consulting his chancellor, Theobald von Bethmann-Hollweg, but emotion soon overtook caution. Wilhelm told Austria, "Act against Serbia. Don't delay. Germany will stand with you." This was the moment Austria had been waiting for, the so-called blank check. For the first time, Vienna knew it could act without fear of being abandoned. But not everyone in Berlin shared the Kaiser's impulsiveness. Some German generals doubted Austria's seriousness, suspecting all this talk of war might fizzle into more empty threats. Yet Hoyos reassured them. The plan was real. Serbia would be struck and the Balkans reshaped. The German chancellor had always been cautious. But now, weighed down by grief after the death of his wife, Exhausted and pessimistic, he surprised everyone. Instead of holding back, he echoed the Kaiser's promise. Germany would support Austria fully, whatever happened. It was a remarkable shift, and it gave Vienna the confidence to press forward. Still, this confidence was built on shaky ground. Both Berlin and Vienna assumed Russia would hesitate. They believed the Tsar's military was unprepared, his government too divided. They thought France, Russia's ally, would stay out rather than risk its own neck. And above all, they believed the conflict could be kept small, a punishment for Serbia, nothing more. In truth, they had just set the stage for the largest war the world had ever seen. Back in Vienna, Konrad von Hetzendorf pushed harder than ever. Delay, he warned, was deadly. Strike Serbia before it could prepare. Show strength, or the empire would crumble. But Tisza stood in the way. He demanded diplomacy first, an ultimatum with terms so strict Serbia could never accept. Then, and only then, would war be justified. His resistance worked, at least for now. Austria agreed to draft demands. But another problem slowed everything down. Many soldiers had been sent home on summer harvest leave. Cancelling it would reveal Austria's intentions to the world. That meant the army could not be fully ready until late July, and this delay brought a new risk. France's president and prime minister were scheduled to visit Russia on July 20th. If Austria delivered its ultimatum while they were in St. Petersburg, France and Russia could coordinate their response face to face. To avoid this, Vienna decided to wait until after the French left. But Europe was not blind. Despite Vienna's efforts at secrecy, leaks began to spread. Italy's foreign minister learned of Austria's plans and passed the news to Russia. Austria's own foreign minister, Berchtold, made the fatal mistake of confiding in an old friend, who in turn spoke to the British ambassador. Within days, both Britain and Russia knew an ultimatum was coming. By July 13th, the Russians had confirmation Austria would soon move against Serbia. The stage was set, and every power began to brace for what was coming. Inside Vienna, the mood hardened. In meeting after meeting, ministers argued that Austria's prestige was at stake. If they backed down, the empire would look weak. Conrad and Berchtold demanded action. Only Tisza held out, warning again of a wider war. Yet even he admitted that if Serbia rejected Austria's demands, force would be unavoidable. His caution had slowed the march, but it could not stop it. By July 19th, the ultimatum was ready. It was deliberately harsh, terms Serbia could never accept without surrendering its sovereignty. Austria believed it was checkmate. If Serbia agreed, Austria would humiliate it. If Serbia refused, Austria would have its excuse for war. What they didn't realize was that this move would drag in Russia, then France, and eventually Britain. And so, as the diplomats whispered in back rooms and the generals quietly prepared their armies, Europe inched toward disaster. Austria believed it was punishing a small neighbor. Germany believed it was standing by its ally. But together, they had opened a door that no one could close. It all stemmed from that single gunshot in Sarajevo. One bullet, one death, and a chain of decisions that would plunge the world into the Great War. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next chapter in this story.